The girl kicked again, smacking her boot against the rough wood floor of the feed store. Her blood left streaks on the boards. The men holding her didn't flinch. The sheriff's voice cut through the chaos, low, calm, a knife in the quiet. "She's mine now." He said it like a fact, like the girl had never existed outside his hands. "Move," one of them added, shifting his grip. The girl spat blood. "You don't own breath," she hissed. Her teeth gleamed, wet with rage. "She stole," the sheriff replied, almost too softly, "but she survived." "Same thing around here." A door slammed. Dust rose. The widow stepped in, hands loose at her sides, calm like a warning she didn't need to shout. Her eyes locked on the girl's captors, cold and unwavering. She didn't ask, didn't hesitate. She simply walked between their hands and wrists, filling the space, pressing presence into it. "Don't you touch her," she said. Her voice didn't shake. Not once. The sheriff's calm sharpened. "Step aside." The widow didn't move. She touched the girl's arm, light, protective. "Not one step closer." Her words were small, simple, but heavy enough to make the men pause. The girl stared at the widow, a mixture of shock and relief, blood dripping from her split lip, tears streaking her dirt-smeared face. "They're gonna kill my sister," she whispered, so low only the widow could hear. The men glanced at each other. Uncertainty flickered. The widow's stare didn't waver. "You hear her?" she asked. The sheriff said nothing. "You don't get to decide what lives or dies here," she added, her hand gripping the girl's arm firmly. "Not tight, just steady. You've already stolen enough." The girl's knees buckled slightly. She spat again, eyes wild. "I'm not going back. Not ever." Her voice cracked. "You think I care what you want? I'll tear this place down before I let them take her." The widow's thumb brushed the girl's knuckles. Calm, grounding, a tether in the middle of chaos. "I got you," she said. "You stay right here. Nothing else matters." One of the men shifted. "She's just a kid," he muttered, almost pleading. "Age don't mean a thing when blood runs." The widow tilted her head. "She's alive," she said simply. "And she'll stay that way." The sheriff's hand twitched near his belt. He smelled the balance of power shifting. "You think a woman standing there can stop me?" he asked, voice still eerily calm. "Try me," the widow replied, her lips tight, her eyes holding fire. "I already did." The girl leaned closer to the widow, the trembling of her body like a live wire. "Please," she said, low, urgent. Her voice carried a weight beyond words, carrying the invisible thread of what she was trying to protect. "You can't let them." The widow pressed her cheek lightly against the girl's hair, a small, unspoken promise. "I won't," she whispered. "I swear I won't." The men shifted uneasily. Their confidence faltered like old wood under pressure. The sheriff's jaw tightened. He didn't like losing control. Control was the only law he needed. The girl's fists tightened around the widow's sleeve. "They're watching," she said, nodding toward the dusty windows where the rest of town might be peeking, curious and cruel. "You don't have to care what the town thinks," the widow said. "They're not us. We don't answer to them." Her words were plain, deliberate, like a hammer striking stone. "Not today," she added. "Not ever." The men hesitated. Eyes narrowed, a flicker of uncertainty passing through their faces. Bloodied knuckles, wild eyes, the faint tremor of fear, the widow could read it all. "Move, or I make you," she said again, sharper this time. The sheriff's hand dropped slowly. The other men looked like they might run. The girl's chest heaved, and for a moment, she almost laughed, almost cried. She was alive, here, now, standing between the widow and the men who thought they could own her. The widow's grip tightened, just enough to remind the girl she wasn't alone. "We're leaving," she said. "Right now. You follow or you stay." The girl's blood-streaked face turned toward her, hope and fury tangled. "I'm coming," she breathed. "I'm coming with you." The widow nodded once, motionless, but every line of her body said she would protect this girl until the end. The sheriff didn't speak. He only watched as the widow stepped back, letting the girl take her first trembling steps toward safety. The men stepped aside. Fear now in their eyes, control lost. Silence filled the feed store. Just the breathing of two women, standing together, facing the weight of what was to come. The wagon creaked under the weight of their silence as the widow guided the team of horses down the dirt road. The girl sat stiff, knees pressed to her chest, eyes darting to the edges of the trees, to the fences, to the empty fields beyond, as if the whole world might jump up and grab her. The air smelled of dust and horse sweat, the sun low and sharp, burning shadows into their skin. "You always save strays?" the girl finally asked, voice tight with suspicion. The widow's hand stayed steady on the reins. "Only the ones bleeding," she said. Her words were soft but firm, an anchor in the quiet. The girl's lips twisted, half smile, half sneer. "I ain't staying," she said. Her voice trembled with equal parts fear and defiance. "Then sit still till you leave," the widow replied without looking back, the wagon wheels grinding against the stones. The girl's hands moved restlessly, brushing the seat, gripping the sides of the wagon, her nails pressing into the wood. "I can run," she muttered. "You think I'll stay? You think the law can't catch up to me?" The widow's eyes flicked to the girl briefly. "You're already here. That counts for something." The girl turned sharply, shaking her head. "Counts for nothing. They'll find me. They always do." Blood dotted her wrist where she had scraped herself earlier, tiny red rivulets tracing pale skin. The widow grabbed a rag from the bench, pressed it lightly against the wound. "Doesn't matter," she said. "They won't." The girl's laugh was sharp, bitter. "You think I care if they die?" The widow didn't answer. The horses labored up a small rise, creaking under their load. Trees snapped in the wind, the empty fields stretched on forever. The girl's hand brushed her stomach unconsciously. Pain flinched across her face, her jaw tightening. She began, then stopped. The widow didn't ask, didn't comment. The silence itself was enough. The girl exhaled hard. She shook her head, staring at the horizon. "I can't tell you everything. You wouldn't understand." "Try me," the widow said simply. The girl's eyes narrowed. "You're not from here," she said. "I can tell. You don't know what they do." The wagon dipped into a hollow. The wheels groaned. Dust rose, clinging to skin and hair. "Then I learn," the widow said. The girl doubled over suddenly, gripping the side of the wagon, breath ripping out in gasps. Blood pooled on the wooden floorboards where she fell, a dark smear spreading in stark contrast to the pale wood. The widow bent quickly, steadying her, brushing hair from her face. "Now," she said. "Just one word. A command, a promise, a shield." The girl nodded, tears hot on her cheeks, sweat streaking through the dirt and blood. Pain twisted across her body. The horse beneath them shifted, hooves scraping stones. The girl bit back a scream. The widow kept her hand firm against her shoulder. "I've got you," she said. "You'll get through this." The girl's voice barely rose above a whisper. "I don't know if I can." "You can," the widow said. Her tone held no argument, no persuasion, only fact. "You already are." The girl flinched at the words, pulled herself upright as best she could, knees shaking, stomach curling inwards. Her eyes were wide, fierce, wild, and raw. "You don't get it," she said. "They'll," the widow interrupted gently, placing a hand on her arm. "Not today. Not while I'm here." The girl stared, half defiant, half grateful, her chest heaving. For a moment, the wagon seemed suspended between worlds, between safety and danger, between past and what was to come. Dust rose with every turn of the wheels, sunlight slashing through it like knives. The girl's breaths came ragged. Blood still damp on her skin. Her stomach clenched again. She looked up, eyes meeting the widow's, panic and trust colliding. "I can't." "Yes, you can," the widow said. Her voice was soft, unyielding. The girl's hands shook as she reached for the edge of the wagon. Her body convulsed once more, pain searing through her like fire. The widow pressed the rag to her palm again, muttering nothing. Wheels ground against the dirt, the horses kept moving, and the girl's small cries mixed with the sound of hoofbeats and dust. Now, the widow repeated, steady, unshakable, as if speaking could carry them both through the pain. And in that single word, the girl felt a tether she had never known, the faintest pulse of hope amidst the terror. The wagon stopped at the edge of the widow's land. The tall grass whispered against the wheels. The girl's breathing was uneven, sharp, full of fear and exhaustion. She stared at the house in the distance, the one that had waited empty for years, quiet and watching like a patient ghost. "I'm not having it," the girl said, gripping the side of the wagon as though the ground itself might swallow her if she stepped down. Her voice trembled, stubborn, raw. The widow's hand stayed on the reins. "You already are," she said quietly. She didn't ask for consent. She didn't wait for permission. The girl's eyes flicked to the woman, wide, and then back to the house. "I didn't choose this," she whispered. The widow's jaw tightened. "Neither did I." Her voice was calm, flat, but something behind it carried weight, memory, loss. She swung down from the wagon, boots crunching against gravel, and held her hand out. "Come on." The girl hesitated. Her eyes traced the roofline, the windows dark like unblinking eyes, the porch sagging under years of neglect. Dust rose where the wind touched the boards. Inside, the air smelled faintly of old smoke and absence. The widow opened the door without knocking, the hinges whining in protest. The house felt paused, frozen, like it had been waiting for them, for this moment. The girl's breath caught. Pain twisted across her stomach again, sharp and unwelcome. She shook her head, refusing the inevitability. "I can't," she said. The widow didn't look at her. She moved to the center of the room, gathering rags and bowls from a shelf. "You are," she said, voice low, matter of fact. "You don't get to choose." "Not this time." The girl pressed herself to the wall, arms wrapped around her stomach, legs trembling. "It's not supposed to happen here," she muttered. "I didn't." The widow's hands were fast, precise, cleaning and preparing, her movements practiced, almost automatic, like someone who had lost and learned how to hold steady in grief. "It happens where it happens," she said. She didn't look at the girl. "We don't get to stop it, but we do get to be here." A scream ripped through the air, sudden, raw, sharp. The girl flinched. Her eyes widened. She looked at the widow. The widow's hand stilled for a heartbeat, but her body didn't move. The scream was not the girl's. It was older, quieter, echoing off the walls, rising from memory itself. A name remembered, a loss unspoken. The girl's chest heaved. "What was that?" she asked, voice small. The widow shook her head. "Nothing," she said, but her lips tightened, jaw stiffened. "Old things. Not ours to touch now." The girl stumbled to a chair, gripping the edge. Blood dotted her wrist, smeared across her shirt where she had pressed against herself. "I can't do this," she whispered. Tears stung her eyes. The widow moved closer, gently, but with authority, steadying her. "You are," she repeated, simple, unflinching. "It's coming, whether you want it or not. I won't leave." The girl's head dropped. Pain radiated through her body, sharp, relentless. "I'm scared," she admitted, voice cracking. "I don't know how to." "You'll know," the widow said. Her hands brushed the girl's hair back, gentle, grounding. "I'll be here." "That's enough." Outside, the wind rustled the empty fields, carrying the faintest sound of something distant, watchful. The girl's lips trembled. "It's not fair," she said. The widow tilted her head slightly, silent for a moment, then spoke. "Life rarely is." The girl's eyes darted around the room, taking in the shadows, the old furniture, the absence that spoke louder than any word. "I don't want it here," she whispered. "I don't." "It doesn't matter where," the widow said, cutting in, firm. "You are having it. Here or there, it will happen. You are not alone." The girl flinched at the certainty, at the steady calm that didn't waver, at the weight behind it. She wanted to argue, to run, to fight, but her body refused. Her body belonged to what was coming, not to her. The house seemed to exhale around them, holding its breath with them. The girl's hands clutched the edge of the table, knuckles white. The widow moved, arranging rags, bowls, a water jar, preparing without ceremony, preparing as if she had done this countless times before. The girl's eyes followed her every motion. Pain twisted her stomach, doubled her over. "I don't want this," she said again. "You already are," the widow said, and the words landed heavier than any hand could strike. A shudder passed through the girl. Another scream broke the silence, quieter this time, internal, a ghost of the past. The widow's hand rested briefly on the girl's shoulder. "We face it together," she said. Pain hit her like a hammer, relentless, shaking her from toes to skull. She clutched the edge of the table, nails digging into wood, teeth clenched. "I won't push," she spat, voice sharp, ragged. The widow's hand pressed to her shoulder, steady, unflinching. "You will," she said simply. No pleading, no coaxing. The girl's body quivered, stomach twisting like fire, sweat soaking her shirt, tears streaking through dust and grime. "Don't touch me," the girl hissed, head snapping away. "I'm already here," the widow said softly, holding her anyway, grounding her, keeping her from spinning off into terror. Outside, the fence line cut the fields in jagged shadows. Shapes lingered there. Town men, watching, waiting, their eyes as cold and still as statues. The girl flinched, voice breaking. "They're out there," she said, voice trembling with fury and fear. "They'll take me, or her, or both. I swear," the widow pressed a hand to her mouth, shushing the wordless panic. "They're not ours right now," she said. "Focus. Just this. Right now. You fight the fire in you first." The girl screamed, arching back, shaking, legs kicking the floorboards, leaving streaks of sweat and blood. Her body convulsed. The pain burned like knives. The widow stayed, hand firm against her back, eyes steady. "Breathe," she said. "Long, slow. I'm right here." The girl gritted her teeth. "I can't." "Yes, you can," the widow interrupted, voice quiet but absolute. "I won't let go. Not once." The girl's sobs tore out, ragged, raw. "I'm scared," she whispered, almost inaudible. "I know," the widow said, tone flat but heavy, carrying memory and quiet grief in its weight. "Good. You should be. It means you care. It means you're alive." The girl's arms clutched the widow's, nails biting into skin. Pain rolled in waves, relentless, unforgiving. She screamed again, a long, piercing note that rattled the rafters, mingled with the wind outside. "It hurts," she gasped. "It's too much." The widow brushed damp hair from her forehead. "I know," she said. "I feel it too. But you won't break. Not here." Outside, shadows shifted. A fence post creaked. The men lingered, still, patient, unmoving. The girl's jaw tightened. "They're watching everything," she said. "I can't shoo," the widow said. Her thumb pressed lightly to the girl's temple, grounding, steadying. "We're inside. Nothing else matters." Another wave hit. Her body arched, hands grasping, legs shaking, sweat slick against the boards. Blood streaked across the floor where she had fallen, smeared and dark, raw. The widow's hands didn't falter, moving with practiced calm, steadying, guiding, a quiet presence that carried both command and comfort. "You're stronger than you know," she said. "Every scream, every kick, it's proof. You survive it all, you'll remember it. Not the fear, the fire." The girl's eyes widened, sweat and tears clinging to her lashes. "I hate them," she breathed. "All of them. The town. Them. Everything." The widow didn't flinch. "Good," she said simply. "Hate keeps you alive. Keeps you moving." The girl cried out again, a sharp, piercing note, voice ragged and broken. The widow murmured encouragement, one hand steady on the girl's shoulder, the other wiping blood from her palm, pressing a damp cloth to her forehead, to her side. "Every breath counts," she said. "Every second, every scream, every kick. You're alive." The girl's body shuddered, convulsed, pain carving deep lines into her face. She gasped. "I can't do it." The widow's eyes held her. "You already are," she said. "You've been doing it. Every breath, every scream, every kick. You survive this. You survive everything else." The wind whispered outside. Fence shadows remained, watching. The girl's body twisted again, a final scream tearing out of her chest, not her own name, not the baby's, but a name older, buried, whispered into the walls. The widow pressed her hand to the girl's back, steadying, grounding, whispering nothing, letting the scream pass, letting the pain flow into the boards, into the room, into the quiet house that held memory and grief in its walls. The girl's chest heaved. Sweat and blood clung to skin and hair. The widow did not move. She never left. Not once. Every second, every scream, every convulsion, every tear, she stayed. And then the girl fell still for a heartbeat. Breath coming in ragged, trembling gasps. Outside, the shadows at the fence line shifted and then receded slightly, uncertain. Inside, the house held its quiet. The blood on the floorboards glistened, dark and alive, a testament to the battle fought and survived. The girl's eyes closed briefly. The widow's hand stayed on her shoulder. Not a word, just presence, unflinching. They were not safe yet. But the worst of the fire had passed. The baby's head pressed against her body, the girl froze. Her chest heaved, sweat and blood mixing on her skin. Pain still lingered, claws at her stomach, but something heavier pressed at her chest, guilt, fear, a nameless dread. "She ain't mine," she gasped, voice small, almost breaking. The widow's hands stayed steady on her shoulders. "She's coming out of you," she said softly, calm, factual, grounding. The girl shook her head violently. "No. She's," her voice cracked. "She's my sister." The widow's grip tightened, just enough to anchor her. "Then you hold her," she said. "And you breathe." The girl's hands trembled as they brushed the wet, slick head of the baby, pressing it against her chest. "How old are you?" the widow asked, voice low, even. "Old enough to know what they do," the girl whispered, eyes wide, fixed on the small, fragile body that had just entered the world. Her teeth clenched, jaw tight. She didn't cry, but her chest shuddered with the effort of holding back terror. The widow didn't speak. She only stayed, present, steady, unyielding, letting the girl feel the weight, letting the truth settle. The room smelled of sweat and blood and something faintly sweet. The girl pressed the baby closer. They can't know," she whispered, voice almost lost. I know," the widow said. "I know. That's why you're here. That's why she's here. Safe. For now." The girl's hands moved over the baby's small body, trembling, tracing limbs she didn't know were hers to touch. The baby didn't cry. Not yet. Just blinked, tiny eyes uncertain, searching. The girl's lips quivered. "I can't." "Yes, you can," the widow said. Her voice was flat, firm, carrying the weight of all the fight she had survived. "You did it. You survived. That's enough." Outside, the wind whispered against the boards, subtle, patient. The girl's body curled around the baby instinctively, protection and fear tangled together. "I wasn't supposed to," she murmured. "They said I wasn't old enough. They said I couldn't." The widow knelt beside her, still calm, steady. "You're here," she said. "You're alive. And she's alive. That's all that matters. The rest, we survive." The girl's tears fell finally, hot, unrelenting, splashing against the baby's tiny body. "I ran," she said, shaking. "I left. I didn't think I could." "You came," the widow said, quiet, matter of fact. "That counts. That's the courage." The girl's lips trembled. "But she's so small," she whispered. "What if they take her?" What if? The widow pressed a hand to the girl's shoulder. They won't, she said. Not while I'm here. Not while you're here. The girl's eyes flicked up, searching. Fear lingered in the corners, but determination glimmered behind it. I don't get to keep her, she said finally, voice low. But I can hold her. I can protect her. The widow nodded. That's enough. A soft cry escaped the baby then, a tiny, fragile sound that pulled the room into stillness. The girl gasped, hands tightening around the small body, rocking gently. The widow stayed kneeling beside her, steady, silent. She's here, the widow said. She made it. The girl's lips pressed against the baby's forehead. I'll keep her, she whispered. No matter what. Outside, the fence line remained empty, the shadows retreating with the wind. The room smelled of blood, sweat, and something sweet. Life. Small, fragile, defiant. The girl's chest rose and fell, holding the baby, finally letting the moment settle. I did it, she said quietly. I'm here. The widow didn't smile. She simply brushed a damp strand of hair from the girl's face. You survived, she said. That's what matters. The girl's eyes, wide and raw, flicked to her. And her? The widow's hands hovered briefly over the small form, protective. She's safe, she said. For now, she's safe. The girl inhaled sharply, holding the newborn closer, pain and relief tangled in every shuddering breath. The room held its quiet, the blood on the floorboards still wet, a testament to what had been endured, to what had survived. The girl didn't cry, didn't speak more. She simply held her sister, and in that moment, nothing else existed. The newborn screamed once, sharp, small, and then paused, chest heaving, eyes wide, searching. The girl flinched, pressing her face against the baby's head, trying to calm her, trying to hold her together in the tremor of the first breaths. The widow knelt beside them, hands steady, hovering, not intrusive, waiting for the girl to let go or lean in. She breathing, but the girl whispered, voice raw and hoarse from the pain, the crying, the adrenaline. Yes, the widow said, calm, measured. She's alive. That's all that matters right now. The girl's fingers trembled as she traced the small arm, feeling the faint pulse against her palm. Don't let them take her, she said, almost to herself. They won't, the widow said. Her voice carried memory, loss, and the quiet certainty of someone who had survived the impossible before. You swear? The widow's eyes met hers. I bury liars, she said. Outside, the night had come quickly, folding the land into shadows. The wind whispered through the broken boards of the porch, through cracks in the walls, carrying the faint sound of the fence line, empty, patient, lingering. The girl didn't look outside. She couldn't. Her small fingers clenched the baby's soft body, rocking gently. I'm scared, she admitted, voice barely audible. Me too, the widow said. She stayed kneeling beside the girl, a presence, a tether, a wall against the world outside. The girl inhaled, holding the newborn closer, as if pressing her own heartbeat into the baby's chest could make the fear dissolve. The widow's mind flickered, briefly, to her own child lost years ago. She didn't speak it, didn't name it. She only felt the ghost of the loss in the curve of the girl's trembling shoulders, the raw weight of holding life in her hands, the way fear and hope collided in such small, fragile forms. She's quiet now, the girl whispered. The widow nodded. Quiet doesn't mean safe, she said, gently. It only means she's listening. Waiting. Trusting you enough to breathe. The girl's lips pressed to the baby's forehead. I've never held anyone before, she said. Not like this. The widow tilted her head. You're learning. That's enough. The room smelled of sweat and blood and something faintly sweet, new. The baby's tiny fingers twitched, reaching blindly, searching for warmth. The girl's hands shook, but she held on, rocking gently, whispering words the baby couldn't understand yet. I'll keep you. I swear I will. The widow watched, silent, steady, letting the moment stretch, letting the girl claim her own courage, her own defiance. Outside, the night deepened. The fence line remained empty. The shadows waited. The house breathed quietly, memory soaking into the boards, into the walls, into the silence. The girl pressed her cheek to the baby's, inhaling, shivering, alive, tethered, afraid, determined. "We won't let them take you," she said. "Not ever." The widow's hand rested lightly on the girl's shoulder, firm but gentle. "You're not alone," she said. "None of you are." A sharp knock shattered the fragile quiet. Hard. Insistent. Official. The girl flinched, clutching the newborn to her chest. She started. The widow placed a hand over her mouth for a heartbeat. Then she nodded toward the door, voice low, calm. "I'll handle it." The girl's eyes widened, panic flickering. "No," she whispered. "Don't let them," I said. "I'll handle it," the widow repeated. She rose slowly, tall and steady, moving toward the door with deliberate control. The baby stirred, tiny fingers pressing into the girl's chest. The girl held on, whispering a low promise, as the widow opened the door to the night and the unknown. The knock came again, more urgent. The widow's voice carried through the threshold. "What do you want?" Silence, then murmured words, carefully chosen, but the weight of authority hung in them. The girl pressed closer to the baby, holding tight, chest heaving. "I'm right here," the widow whispered to her. "Breathe. Just breathe. We're together." The wind shifted outside. The night seemed to pause. Every heartbeat echoed, every breath counted. They were alive. They had survived. And for now, that was enough. The knocking grew louder, sharper, deliberate. The girl clutched the newborn to her chest heaving, eyes wide. The widow's hand stayed on her shoulder, steadying, grounding, a wall against panic. Outside, the wind pushed through the boards, carrying shadows that weren't just wind. The first man's voice came soft, measured, almost polite. "We're here for the child," he said. "She belongs in the town." The widow didn't flinch. Her eyes met the fence line, cold, calm. "She's not property," she said. "She's alive. And she stays alive here." The voice from outside paused. "Everything born here is ours to guide," another man said, voice lower, edged. "You ever try taking from a grave?" The widow's lips tightened. Not a threat. A warning. The girl pressed the baby closer. Fear mixed with the instinct to fight, and her small body trembled. The widow didn't answer right away. She opened the door slowly, letting shadows spill inside, but didn't step aside. The men lingered outside, voices soft, eyes calculating, patience sharp. The girl stayed huddled, the newborn pressed tight, listening, heart racing, breaths short. "I said, we're here to help," one man said, careful, measured, the kind of words meant to lull before control. The widow's jaw tightened. Help isn't taking what lives. Help isn't fear. Help isn't blood on the floorboards. "Stay out," she said. The men shifted. They didn't argue, didn't advance. They watched, calculating. The widow's body held the line between inside and out, past and present, danger and protection. The girl's fingers gripped the baby's arms, holding tight. "I won't let them," she whispered. The widow's hand pressed lightly against the girl's back. "No. Not here. Not now." The baby stirred, letting out a small whimper. The men outside shifted, glancing at the faint sound, realizing the weight of life inside. "We're not leaving empty-handed," the soft voice said. "You don't get to hide her forever." The widow tilted her head, eyes sharp, patient, unyielding. "She's alive. That's all that matters." "Go," she said. "Go and tell whoever sent you. Tell them the girl and her sister are alive. And they're not alone." The men paused. One glanced at the others, silent communication in subtle gestures, measuring, weighing. The girl's chest heaved, sweat and exhaustion mixing. She looked up at the widow. "They'll come back," she whispered. "I know," the widow said, flat, certain. "And when they do, we'll be ready." The girl pressed the baby closer. "I can't," the widow's hand covered her mouth lightly. You already did, she said. You survived the fire inside you. You held life. You've already done more than they could ever understand. Outside, the wind shifted again. Shadows lingered at the fence line, patient, waiting, but the woman and girl inside had already taken the first step. The baby's small cry echoed, a fragile defiance. One of the men's voices rose slightly, testing. You think one woman can keep them alive? The widow's eyes were flat, cold. I know one woman can keep them alive, she said. The girl's grip tightened on the baby. The man didn't move, didn't respond. Silence stretched, tense, thick. Then another voice, calm, clipped. Open the door. Let us in. We can help. The widow shook her head, stepping slightly into the threshold. Help doesn't enter like this. Help doesn't come with threats. The baby whimpered. The girl pressed closer. I can hear them, she said. Fear sharpened her voice, trembling. I hear them outside. The widow's hand rested against her shoulder, grounding. We're inside, she said. They aren't us. Their shadows don't matter here. Not tonight. Not while we breathe. The men shifted again, uncertain, measured. Words faltered, soft, clipped, polite and cruel all at once. The widow's presence didn't waver. The girl clutched the newborn, and for a heartbeat, the world felt suspended between what waited outside and the fragile, trembling life inside. The widow didn't step aside. She didn't give ground. Shadows lingered at the edges, voices soft, patient. But the girl and her sister were held, alive, tethered to a promise that the outside world couldn't break. The sheriff stepped forward at last, boots slow on the porch boards, badge catching the lamplight. His voice stayed soft. Too soft. Ma'am, he said, you're tired. This night's been hard. Let us take the child. We'll make it right. The widow didn't blink. She studied his face, the lines around his mouth, the way his hand hovered near his belt. You always talk gentle before you bury things, she said. The girl stiffened, clutching the baby. The sheriff's jaw tightened. Careful, he warned. The widow nodded once. You remember the well, she said. The porch went still. One of the men shifted behind him. Don't, the sheriff said quietly. Women don't forget holes, the widow replied. The girl's breath caught. What well? She whispered. The widow didn't look back. The one they filled with dirt instead of truth, she said. The one with bones nobody counted. The sheriff swallowed. You don't know what you're saying. The widow took a step closer, still blocking the door. I know names, she said. I know dates. I know which letters never got mailed. I know who cried in kitchens and who drank after. One of the men muttered, This isn't right. The sheriff raised a hand, stopping him. His voice stayed calm, but the edge showed. You think digging up old stories gives you power? The widow's eyes hardened. Stories rot, she said. Truth keeps breathing. The baby whimpered. The girl rocked her, eyes wide, torn between fear and something new, something solid. They did this before, she said suddenly. Didn't they? The sheriff snapped, Stay quiet. The widow spoke over him. Yes, she said. They took babies. They took girls. They called it order. The sheriff exhaled slowly. That badge means something, he said. It means I keep peace. The widow laughed once, sharp and dry. That badge means you decide who gets buried quiet. Silence stretched. The night pressed in close. One man wiped his mouth. Another looked away toward the fields. The girl lifted her chin. You're scared, she said. The sheriff looked at her then, really looked, and something flickered. Anger. Calculation. You don't know anything, he said. The widow stepped forward another inch. She knows enough, she said. She survived you. The sheriff's voice dropped. You don't get to accuse me in my own town. The widow nodded. This stopped being yours a long time ago. The baby cried louder, sharp and hungry. The girl panicked. She needs me, she said. Her arms shook. The widow turned then, finally, and reached out. Give her to me, she said. The girl hesitated. Just for a moment, the widow added. You need your hands free. Slowly, trembling, the girl passed the newborn over. The widow held the baby against her chest, firm, practiced, eyes never leaving the men. The crying softened. The sheriff watched, something unreadable crossing his face. You see, the widow said. She trusts women who don't lie. The girl wiped her face with the back of her hand. They already decided, she said. Back in town. They said she'd disappear. One of the men whispered, that ain't true. The widow's eyes snapped to him. Then stop standing there, she said. He didn't move. The sheriff's voice turned sharp for the first time. This ends now. The widow shook her head. No, she said. This ends when you remember what that badge cost. She stepped back and placed the baby gently into the girl's arms. The girl held her tight, grounding herself. The widow turned back to the men, shoulders squared, voice low and steady. You can leave, she said. Or you can stay and listen to everything I know. The sheriff removed his hat slowly, fingers tight around the brim. Not respect. Not surrender. Calculation. The night held its breath. The sheriff held his hat in both hands, fingers tight around the brim. The girl watched him, heart pounding, the baby heavy and warm against her chest. She felt smaller and larger all at once. The widow didn't speak. She didn't need to. Silence pressed in, thick and sharp. The men waited for the sheriff to decide. He didn't rush. He never did. Hand her over, he said finally, voice even. This doesn't have to get ugly. The girl took one step forward before she could stop herself. Then she stopped. Her legs shook, but she didn't move again. She stays, the girl said. Her voice surprised her. It was steadier than she felt. The sheriff looked at her like she'd barked. You don't decide, he said. I just did, she replied. The baby stirred, letting out a small sound, and the girl tightened her grip, grounding herself in the weight of her sister's body. The widow's eyes flicked to her, sharp, assessing, then softened just a fraction. The sheriff sighed. You're a child, he said. You don't know what you're standing against. The girl swallowed. Her throat burned. I know what I ran from, she said. I know what you do when no one's watching. One of the men shifted uncomfortably. Another cleared his throat. The sheriff's jaw tightened. Watch your mouth. The girl lifted her chin. Make me. The widow stepped closer, not touching, just present. She's done running, she said. The sheriff's eyes flicked between them. You think courage fixes this? He asked. Courage gets people buried. The girl's hands shook, but she didn't look down. So does silence, she said. Her words landed harder than she expected. She felt something settle inside her, something firm and immovable. The wind pushed against the porch. The night pressed close. The sheriff stared at her, weighing, measuring. You stand there holding that baby like it makes you strong, he said. It does, the girl answered. It makes me real. The baby whimpered softly. The girl rocked her, breathing slow, steady. I'm not leaving her, she said. You want her, you'll have to look at me while you take her. The sheriff looked away first. Just for a second. The widow saw it. So did the men. Power shifted, subtle but undeniable. One of them muttered, "This is getting bad." The sheriff snapped, "Quiet." The girl didn't flinch. She took another breath, deeper this time. You already lost, she said. You just don't know it yet. The sheriff's mouth tightened. You think this ends tonight? The girl shook her head. No, she said. But it starts ending now. The widow nodded once, almost imperceptible. The girl felt it like a hand on her back, steadying her spine. The men looked uncertain now. Their feet shifted. Their shoulders sagged. The sheriff watched it happen and hated it. Slowly, deliberately, he put his hat back on. Then he took it off again. He studied the dirt at his boots. Not in shame. In calculation. You stay here, he said finally. Tonight. The girl didn't respond. She didn't thank him. She didn't nod. She just stood still, holding the baby, breathing through the fear, letting it pass through her without breaking her. The widow's voice cut in, low and calm. You don't grant permission anymore. The sheriff glanced up, eyes cold. Don't confuse a pause with mercy. The girl met his gaze. Don't confuse fear with control, she said. The baby's breathing slowed. The girl felt it, felt the calm spread through her chest. She wasn't wild now. She wasn't running. She was rooted. The sheriff stepped back. One step. Then another. The men followed, slow and uneasy. The porch creaked under their retreat. The girl didn't move until they reached the edge of the light. Only then did she exhale, long and shaking. The widow leaned close, voice quiet. You did good. The girl swallowed hard. I didn't know I could stand still. The widow nodded. Now you do. The lamps inside flickered, casting long shadows across the walls, across the girl and the baby. Outside, the wind pressed against the boards, but the fence line was empty. The men had left, for now, but their eyes lingered in memory. The girl hugged the baby tighter, listening to her tiny breaths. The widow sat beside her on the floor, knees tucked, hands resting lightly on her lap. You scared? The girl asked, voice small, cautious. Always, the widow admitted, voice low, steady. Me too, the girl said, and a flicker of connection passed between them. The house breathed around them. Floorboards creaked under small movements. Dust shifted in the lamplight. The baby stirred, eyes fluttering, tiny hands twitching. The girl whispered softly, It's just us now. The widow didn't answer with words. She simply reached over, steadying the girl's hand on the baby's back, letting her know she wasn't alone. Outside, the world pressed against the house, patient, waiting, but for the first time tonight, the girl didn't feel hunted. She felt grounded. I can't believe they came back, the girl said, voice trembling slightly. I thought, she trailed off. The widow's eyes didn't leave the baby. They always do, she said softly. But that doesn't mean they get in. Not here. Not now. The girl shifted, rocking the baby gently. It's so quiet, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Too quiet. The widow tilted her head slightly. Quiet can be a friend if you let it. Can be a shield. The girl nodded slowly. I never had quiet before. Only noise. And hands. And fear. The baby made a small noise, and the girl exhaled. She knows me, she whispered. She knows I'm here. The widow smiled faintly, not openly. She knows survival, she said. That's all she needs for now. The girl's fingers moved over the baby's hair, tracing the fine down on her head. I'm scared of tomorrow, she admitted. And the next day. The widow's voice was soft, unyielding. Then we meet tomorrow when it comes. One breath at a time. One heartbeat at a time. The room held its quiet. Shadows stretched across walls, and the lamps flickered, spilling light on dust motes. The girl pressed her forehead to the baby's, feeling the faint pulse beneath her fingers. I don't want them to take her, she said. Her voice cracked, small but firm. The widow reached over, hands steady, resting on the girl's shoulders. They won't. Not while we breathe. Not tonight. Not ever if we don't let them. The girl swallowed hard. I'll never let them, she whispered. The wind moved through the house, carrying the scent of dust and wood, faint smoke from the lamps, and something sweet life. The girl rocked the baby, slow, steady. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked, voice quiet. "They probably will," the widow admitted. "But that doesn't change this. You are here. She is here. And we are ready." The girl exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the night pressing down, heavy but not crushing. The widow leaned back slightly, watching, letting her learn that presence could be its own armor. Outside, the stars blinked faintly through the broken boards of the porch. The house seemed to breathe along with them, floorboards creaking under shared movement, walls echoing faint memories. The girl hugged the baby tighter, rocking her gently, whispering, "You're safe. I won't let them take you." The widow's hand rested lightly on the girl's arm. "We hold this night between us," she said. "It doesn't decide the future. Only this moment. Only now." The girl's eyes closed briefly. The baby's breath slowed, rhythm steady. The house held its quiet. They didn't speak again. They didn't need to. Night held its breath. And for the first time, the girl felt it, too, the fragile, fierce possibility of survival. The house settled around them. Floorboards sighed under their weight. Outside, the wind shifted, but the fence line was empty. The girl sat on the floor, baby cradled in her arms, rocking slowly, eyes wide and raw. The widow leaned against the wall, silent, watching, letting her. "They'll come back," the girl said softly, voice almost a whisper. She didn't look up. "I know," the widow replied, calm, certain. She didn't elaborate. Some things didn't need words. The girl's hands trembled slightly as she pressed the baby closer, tracing the tiny curve of her head. "Why help me?" the girl asked suddenly, voice low, fragile. The widow didn't answer immediately. She shifted, settling onto the floor across from them. "Because someone didn't," she said finally. The girl swallowed hard, fingers curling tighter. She pressed the baby to her chest, feeling the soft rise and fall of her tiny breathing. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted. "You already are," the widow said. "You survived tonight. You'll survive the next." The girl's eyes flicked up at her, searching. "And the day after?" The widow tilted her head. "One day at a time. One heartbeat at a time." The baby stirred in her sleep, a faint whimper, and the girl exhaled slowly. "She's so small," she said, voice barely audible. "I can't let them." The widow's hand brushed lightly against her arm, steadying, grounding. "You don't have to. You just have to hold her. That's enough." The girl nodded slowly, still unsure, still trembling. She hugged the newborn tighter, rocking gently. "I don't want to be alone," she whispered. "You're not," the widow said. "Not tonight. Not while I'm here. Not while she's here." The girl's eyes closed briefly, and she pressed her forehead to the baby's. "It feels quiet now," she said. "But I know it's waiting. I know it will come." The widow's eyes followed the shadows on the walls. "Then we'll wait with it," she said. "Not hiding. Not running. Standing." The girl's fingers clutched the baby's tiny hand. "I don't know if I can be that strong." "You are," the widow said. "You've already proven it." The room held its fragile calm. The lamps flickered, shadows stretching across the walls, across the girl and the baby. Outside, the wind carried faint echoes, distant, patient. The girl's chest rose and fell. She looked at the widow. "Will I ever feel normal again?" The widow didn't answer immediately. "Normal is a word they use to control people," she said finally. "You survived tonight. That's your measure. That's enough." The girl nodded, small and uncertain, holding tight. A soft sound came from the baby, a tiny squeak, a shift, a flutter. The girl's breath caught. "She's sleeping," she whispered. The widow smiled faintly, not warm, not easy, just a small acknowledgement. "For now," she said. "For now, she's safe." The girl exhaled slowly, letting the weight in her chest ease slightly. The night pressed against the house. It pressed against their bones, their skin, their memories, but inside, the girl felt something unfamiliar, the faint stir of choice. She could hold. She could stay. She could protect. The widow reached for the baby again, gently, carefully, handing her back to the girl. "It's yours," she said. "For as long as you need." The girl hugged the newborn tight, rocking her softly. "I won't let them take her," she whispered. The widow leaned back against the wall, silent, presence steady, unflinching. Outside, the world waited. Inside, the house breathed. The baby slept. The girl held her. That was enough. The fire burned low on the hearth, flickering across the walls, across the girl and the baby. The widow sat beside her, knees drawn up, hands resting lightly on her lap. The girl hugged the newborn close, rocking slowly, feeling her tiny heartbeat against her chest. "She's warm," the girl whispered, voice soft, almost shy. The widow didn't look up. "So are you," she said, low, quiet, certain. The baby stirred, stretching tiny arms, blinking open small eyes. The girl pressed her forehead against the crown of her sister's head. "I can't let them take you," she whispered. The widow's hand brushed lightly against her arm. "You don't have to," she said. "Not tonight. Not while we breathe. Not while the house remembers how to keep secrets." The girl nodded, rocking the baby gently, eyes wide and tired. "I'm not leaving," she said. "I don't want to." The widow exhaled slowly, letting her presence sink into the girl without words. Memory and grief curled through her quietly, lost children, broken promises, nights spent staring at empty cradles, but she didn't speak them aloud. She only stayed. Only held the space. The girl pressed closer to the baby, letting the warmth spread through her, anchoring her to the moment, to the fragile pulse of life in her arms. Outside, the wind pressed against the boards. The night held its breath. Somewhere beyond the fields, the fence line lay in shadow, silent, waiting. Inside, the house breathed, slow, quiet, alive in its own way. The girl felt the tension in her chest ease slightly. She was here. She was holding her sister. And for now, that was enough. "She's sleeping," the girl whispered, a tremor of relief in her voice. The widow nodded. "For now. Sleep while you can. Tomorrow is another weight to bear." The girl pressed her cheek to the baby's crown. "I will hold her," she said, voice firm but gentle. "I will hold her all night, if I have to." The widow leaned back slightly, letting her words settle. "Then hold her," she said. "Let the night hold us too." The fire's glow painted the walls with movement, dancing shadows across the floorboards. The baby shifted, snuggling closer into the girl's arms. The girl exhaled, slow, steady. "Will it ever stop?" she asked, eyes tracing the flickering light. The widow shook her head faintly. "No. But it changes," she said. "Every heartbeat, every breath changes what's possible. And tonight, we survived it." The girl's lips pressed gently against the baby's forehead. "I'm here," she whispered. "I won't let them take you." The widow's hand rested lightly on the girl's back, grounding her. "You're enough," she said. "Both of you are enough." The baby stirred, then drifted back into quiet, fragile sleep. Outside, the night waited, patient, vast, indifferent. Inside, the house breathed again, walls holding memory, grief, and life together. Names were not spoken. Futures were only implied. The girl hugged the baby closer, rocking her gently. The widow watched quietly, presence steady, unflinching. The lamps flickered one last time, the fire settling into embers. The house exhaled. The girl pressed her face to the baby's, whispering low, "We're here." The widow's voice was soft. "We're awake." And in the stillness, the night held its breath no longer, letting them exist, fragile, alive, and together.